Paul, thank you again for joining us tonight and just have a bit of a conversation as you know in the world around this digital space that we live in, and just to provide a tiny bit of context, is the primary outcome to a certain degree is for students trying to decide whether digital and I guess digital marketing is something they might want to pursue as a
Pursue.
career.
Okay.
And yeah, so Vega offers I think it's one of three degrees in specifically in digital marketing. So this is where we get with this, and this video will get edited and put onto our website for those who want to watch it at a later stage. And this is also part of a Vega Views series dedicated to everything that is Vega and the qualifications and the degrees that we offer. So let me just introduce you before we get started in this conversation. So tonight we have Paul. You're going to have to help me with your last name. I don't want to.
Dishalane.
Dishalane, thanks
Yeah.
for that. Tonight's topic is decoding digital strategy, insights, trends, and real-world know-how. A bit of background about Paul. He's an award-winning marketer and owner of Anomaly, an integrated digital agency based out of Bryanston, Johannesburg. And Paul began his career in marketing in 2008 and transitioned into digital marketing and strategy in 2011. He currently leads the digital strategy for brands such as Panado, BIC Station, and BIC Stations. Okay, so like what are the shifts in, let's take a look at online shopping and demand for personalization. What's influencing digital strategies, and maybe we take it from the content of what are your clients expecting?
Okay. So yeah, I think it's no surprise. I mean, from a digital strategy perspective or the digital ecosystem, as we're all aware, it's changing so rapidly, platform to platform. There's shifts from a Google Meta perspective, new tech that's coming in. If we have a look at, AI, I kind of saw it as, for the time being, a bit of a fad of the metaverse. There's so many changes. So if we have a look at our clients and our client portfolio, what we often find from a digital strategy perspective is, for me, gone are the days of kind of mapping our digital strategy too far in advance, because of all the changes. So often we used to kind of map out digital strategies for the period of, say, 12 months. A lot of that's changed. If we have a look at our most recent round of strategies that we've done for a lot of our adcock clients, we look at quarterly to 6-month strategies. And a lot of it is, if we have a look at, say, adcock as a client of ours, and we look at their push towards e-com, they don't sell direct to customers, but they rely on the likes of Discam, Checkers, etc., to sell the products online for them. If we just have a look at Checkers alone, every quarter they're introducing different ad types that we could potentially capitalize on for our clients. So, if we have a look at trying to map that out over the period of a year, we might start allocating their spend to opportunities that might not actually yield the most amount of value, if that makes sense.
Perfectly understood. And what are you seeing with I don't want to say the emergence of AI, because I mean it's very much here at the moment. Are you using AI at all in assisting you with planning strategy, as a basic example?
So, like, I've got a bit of a different take on AI. I think AI has, it's been around for a very long time. I think it's become more commercialized in the form of chat GPT, but as we know it, AI has been on our mobile devices for probably a decade, if not longer. We've been interacting with different forms of machine learning. So where we use it in our agency, we do use ChatGPT, not really from a strategy perspective. Funny enough, we've started to use it with a lot of copywriting.
I know chatbots are becoming more prevalent. Well, I guess specifically within, answering clients' queries and whatnot. I mean, is that something that any of your clients are asking you to have them help with?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like chatbots, yeah, if it's not obviously done correctly, I think we can all relate. You've interacted with a chatbot that actually just leaves you infuriated. So without the correct, we call it decision tree mapping. So having a look at all the possible answers and actually building out a system that's, provides a customer with a great experience. But, one of our clients, Payflex, they're a big payment gateway, and they've just integrated, they've got a chatbot on their website. They've got WhatsApp chat now as well. So it's, I think about that type of thing is obviously helping them create a customer-centric model where, if we have a look at the integration of WhatsApp, that's where most of, people interact. I love, using WhatsApp for business, or if we're having a look at, the best possible use of it is that I've engaged with is like FlySafair. So when, I get my ticket on FlySafair and I can interact with them via chat. So it's just meeting the customer where they are.
But assuming that, like you said, what you said, decision tree, that the decision tree is mapped out correctly, because I mean, it could go the other direction, and I guess that's where I'm leading to. It. Have you seen any issues with the implementation of sort of AI focused technologies?
Not with us as an agency, really, but I've personally interacted with chatbots that you actually just want to speak to a human, and that option isn't really available. So yeah, I mean, it is still, if we
So
have.
integrating for the sake of integrating is probably not the best idea. It needs to be part of a coherent, purposeful strategy. Like you said, the FlySafair one works beautifully. It could also not work beautifully.
Yeah, I think if we take Payflex as an example, the way it's been successfully implemented strategically is it's managed by the customer service team. So, and it was mapped out correctly from an FAQ perspective. If you don't get what you're looking for, you can speak to a human being, and it's all managed by a tool called Zendesk, and any chats are integrated with that software, and they've got a human on the other side that can actually interact with it. So then it can be successful. But I think if it's just left straight up to call it AI without the option of speaking to a human, I've personally experienced that, and it's frustrating.
So it becomes sort of a vetting process for those who just want quick answers, but at the end of the day, humans still want to speak to humans, which is perfectly understandable. Let's maybe take a step away from AI, and the one that keeps coming up is, well, at least that I've seen over the last 5 years, is AR or VR. I haven't seen much rollout in this space, although it keeps coming up as a future technology. Anything in your space that you're seeing with VR or an augmented reality? Sorry, so virtual reality and augmented reality.
Yeah, listen, what we've experienced with local clients that we work with is it's just a big cost barrier at this point still. So, we actually just proposed a really cool augmented reality campaign to one of our clients, BioPlus, a whole beach activation where you could interact with the oversized can, on Plet Main Beach, Clifton, etc. So we really mapped out this beautiful idea, but when it came, to actually assessing the costs, it just becomes unaffordable, especially strategically. What we try and suggest to our clients is whatever you're investing from a production perspective, make sure you have twice as much to 3 times as much to invest in media to actually make that idea be successful. And if that metric doesn't really weigh up, it doesn't make sense to invest that much. So, obviously there's a lot happening in the European market and the States with augmented reality and virtual reality, but I think South Africa is still a little bit behind. Listen, there's some great suppliers, but from our side, it's the biggest barrier is cost and actually being able to sell that in.
And I think until, I mean, you see tons of videos of people walking the streets with, Apple headsets looking completely ridiculous. And maybe at some point that becomes the reality. And I guess it's companies like you that are, I guess, ready to take your clients to the next level. Onto my final point on the slide is, it's this whole notion of staying alive, in the sense that companies, or maybe your clients potentially, may be less reluctant to adopt new tech. Is this anything you've experienced, or are they, are we still sticking to the traditional, putting money behind campaign on social media and, hope for as many impressions as possible? I mean, because at some point we need to move beyond this.
Yeah, so I think if we have a look at kind of like the most recent examples that we have, I think that comes from my experience from building trust with our clients. So often it might start off as a basic social campaign, but we've done some really cool um, gamification campaigns over the years with our clients, where obviously we might use channels like Meta or Google to drive traffic, but the overall idea or the campaign is rooted in a experiential game, that online or mobile game that clients can actually interact with. So it's like a branded game. So I think digital isn't new. So from our experience, like we're not really struggling with just selling in a basic media campaign. I think um, the appetite is there, put it,
And it's very much a pay to play space. If you're not going to put the money behind the campaigns, it's just, and I guess the same could be said for outdoor as well. This is not necessarily a digital phenomenon. Let's speak about creating seamless experiences. Strategies that are the most effective for ensuring consistent customer experiences. Online. Let's well, you know, let's talk about, it's this customer journey, right? I see a
yeah.
campaign on my phone via, let's say TikTok. I click the link to the website. Um, I decide to go in store. Is this something you deal with your clients at all? Or do you focus primarily only in the digital space, or are you advising that the physical world needs to manifest digital, or vice versa?
Mm. Yeah, no, listen, I don't think that, yes, we are a specialist digital agency, but I also feel that that is slowly going to fall away, because at the end of the day, if you've got a strong idea or a strong strategy, digital is just a channel to execute on. Um, if we have a look at the likes of a Joe Public or an Ogilvy, they offer digital, but it's part of like an integrated solution. And that's where our agencies head in that direction. So if we have a look at certain clients, we might not execute the production of, say, the in-store, but we will design in-store branding, we'll design the campaign landing page, set up a USSD line. So we've really started shifting our own mindset to have a look at that. We call it the omni-channel experience. It's
Yes.
looking at, is in-store consistent with what we communicate on digital? If we're going to do a digital billboard, what does that say and what does it look like? So, we very much, that's becoming a large portion of our work, are these integrated campaigns. We're actually rolling one out now at the moment for Buy Plus, where there will be programmatic buy and there will be out-of-home static billboards, out-of-home digital. There's activation, there's influencers, and we'll look after the campaign A to Z to make sure there's that consistency. And that brings me to my next point, is where I've seen call it that omni-channel experience get broken is, and I've been in that situation as like the digital agency working with a lead agency, and there isn't seamless integration and flow between the two companies. And that often comes down to the client actually bringing the different stakeholders together. That's when it doesn't really work. But we can't, as digital marketers or strategists, afford to just see things in isolation. Like, okay, we're just going to look after digital. To your point, someone might see a Facebook ad, but how can you then maybe link that? We use location-based digital billboards now. So when you drive past the billboard, it can feed you a Facebook or Google ad based on what you've just seen. So it's looking at how do you connect those dots from a consumer perspective.
And any fun or exciting examples that you've seen brands successfully, maybe let's consider bringing digital into the real world. You speak about doing activations. Any examples you could provide us?
Not off the top of my head, to be honest. I think we've been so stuck in the year-end rush trying to launch a bunch of campaigns before Christmas. So
no worries. Maybe then let's take the other stance, is that any brands you see falling short of how connecting these channels, because this is always that conversation is, should I be on TikTok? Well, is your audience on TikTok? Okay, well, should I be on Facebook? Is your audience on Facebook? And it's this, you end up on someone's website and they just have all the channels linked, that you can follow them, and it becomes this copy and paste from Instagram to TikTok, or TikTok to Instagram, and it just often people aren't considering the story that needs to be told, and it's just a replication across channels.
Yeah, look, I think most brands, to be honest, and I think there's only a handful, in my opinion, that are getting it right. That firstly the channel mix, and then the type of content they're sharing on each channel. Even if I have a look at some of the clients we've taken on over the years, and they want to be on X, they want to be on Instagram, Facebook, and what a lot of clients don't realize is, exactly to your point, that the target audience might not be there, but also just the cost to do it properly. There's a major cost implication of being on all these channels. So yeah, I think a lot of brands are falling short, and big brands, and especially with that copy and paste approach to each channel. And it's sometimes we even, to be honest, like, we struggle with that as an agency sometimes, and a lot of it comes down to budget, because to do TikTok right, you need to create original and authentic content. As an example, use content creators. That's going to cost you 30 to 50,000 rand a month if you want to do it properly and have enough content. Not many
You're telling
brands
me you can't just get a student to come and just do all of it for you? I mean, because that seems to be the trend that I'm noticing, is that the first the first graduate that you can get your hands on that's willing to take next to nothing handles all of your social media. And that's always the mistake that I'm noticing that brands make, is that, like you said, you're not dedicating 30,000, 50,000 per channel per month to look after it correctly. Any new things that are coming? Because I don't want to bring up AR and VR again, and AI. Is there anything that you're picking up that might be, I don't know, the future of how we engage in a digital space, or or do you foresee the next 20 years we're still stuck behind computers and our mobile devices?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, as I said kind of upfront, like, it's so difficult to look too far in advance. If we just have a look in the last 4 years, say from an e-commerce perspective, how our lives have changed with the likes of 60/60 as an example. But I think, like, what's pretty interesting in the retail space is using like immersive shopping experiences. So there have been some brands, instead of having like almost like a catalog e-commerce site, they're almost doing like a walkthrough experience where you can actually walk through a store environment on your laptop or on your phone, and select products. I think, if I look
Do you
strictly
think
at,
that you'd speak about Checker 60? Do you think that the future of e-com might be a virtual store?
yeah, it's already happening.
Okay.
There's some overseas brands that are already embracing that technology. So it is more of a virtual store environment. So it gives you the feeling of being in a store. So not just like scrolling a catalog of products. How, I do question it. It gives you maybe a richer experience, but is it optimized for clicks and for sales? Probably not, compared to a straight catalog kind of site. You have a look at Amazon. For me, it's like the most boring UX and UI, but it sells.
It's a terrible design, yeah.
It's
But it
terrible,
seems to
but
work. No, yeah,
it works
it's
exceptionally well.
working.
It looks outdated, but yeah, it really seems to be working. Um, I think that I'm trying to think of another piece of tech that I saw recently. I think that a big trend that we kind of seen in the space, it's not really a tool as per se, but like a lot of personalization. And I think that is a massive insight and trend that's coming from, I'm not such a big fan of like Gen Z, all these terminologies, but personalization is exceptionally important. So I think a lot of that is going to be quite interesting to see how personalization comes through from a ad tech perspective. I think there's going to be,
So customized targeting. You already spoke to, as you drive past I forget the word for these billboards that are
yeah,
that are not pre-scheduled. But they're picking up geolocations of people with devices, and then you're seeing potentially what I think Google's launched this with Google 360, and essentially any digital space becomes a digital billboard, and depending on the collective mass of users and their interests, that is what will be displayed.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I thought for me, it's going to be more interesting in terms of how Google is going to use the data that they have about us to personalize that experience further, if that makes sense. So, if you get a personalized email from a brand, is that one day going to translate into your actual ads that you get served, like that hyper personalization? Because all the data is there.
Yeah.
So I'm quite interested to see where that
So
goes.
beyond cookie tracking or cookies, so the next, moving on to something a bit more personalized.
Yeah, and a piece of tech that we're using quite a bit now with our clients is social commerce. So it's shoppable ads that you interact with on social. So you would see a product, you would click on the advert, and then it actually gives you a list of different retailers that you want to shop that product on, and then you would click and purchase directly. And that just gives us like really nice data and tracking capability, because we're able to track from social media or wherever we are placing that ad up until it's added to a cart on Takealot.
And if we're actually on that point, what software, what technology are you using to track?
So that's all done through a piece of technology called Future Tech. So it's a company in South Africa. They've got a bunch of different ad tech that they use, and all the reporting is actually done through Future Tech. So you get quite rich data. The only thing which we aren't able to track is if that person actually checked out, obviously from a security perspective and a payment gateway. You can't see further than that.
But you could see if they got an email notification potentially, or if an email was sent out confirming their order.
Mm. So the only
Or am
way
I going?
yeah, it's very difficult. And a lot of the e-com platforms, unless you are a registered vendor, they won't share data with you.
Sure. Yeah.
And going further than that, there's the likes of checkers. Unless you are paying quite a premium for data every month, they're very restrictive of what they give you, unless you pay that fee, or you are running a campaign with them and spending a lot of media money.
How serious are your clients about a return on their investment? And I mean, how are you really tracking, the launch of a new, I don't know, pharmaceutical item? Sorry, I'm using the complete wrong words here.
Well, listen, I can give you a tangible example. So
Please.
I don't know if you know of Payflex. So Payflex, as an example, earlier this year they launched a new product. So part of, besides some of your vanity metrics, I call them, your reach impressions that is easy to attain, was they needed new shopper signups. So that for them was
That's
the most
metrics you
important.
can use. Where I'm getting to this is that you clearly define the metrics that you're willing to deliver on. So a client's not going to say that I want 10 million return in the next 5 months. It's a difficult
So
one to prove because they're not necessarily going to give you access to their financial records.
yeah, so, and obviously, some of the proposed figures can be a bit ludicrous. So we've got a pretty solid process at Anomaly to be able to determine what success looks like, and that's always based on previous campaign data. So if we have created a media plan and said we're going to attain X amount of reach or impressions, or this number of signups or registrations for your product, or purchases via your e-commerce site, we will always have a look at previous campaigns and say, this is what we have achieved over the last 6 months. We will then map out our KPIs for the upcoming campaign based on previous data, because
Okay.
that makes it realistic, that makes it achievable, because in our industry, it's very common for agencies to misguide their customers, and I've seen it with a lot of media agencies in particular, where they've got 100,000 rand to spend on a campaign, and they say the CPM is going to be 100 rand, and then they go and achieve a CPM of 15 rand, and they look amazing. They look like they've blown this campaign out of the water.
But
But
no one's bought anything.
no
Or
one's
no one
bought
signed
anything,
up, or
and their CPM was never going to be 100 rand. It's completely
okay.
inflated. So it just makes them look really, really good. Whereas we don't like using, call it industry benchmarks. I think it's a load of BS, to be honest. Like, if Google says the benchmark is 2% for a click-through rate, that's super low, actually. Like, that's not
Yeah,
giving your
because
clients.
if you follow the entire journey, so many people saw it. So many hundred people, thousand people saw it. So many people clicked, and you follow that journey, and it becomes, the percentages become very low, and then there's this massive gap from, you don't know the back end of what your client is seeing either, so you don't
Yeah.
know if things are successful, because they'll say that they want so many people to buy the new, I don't know. I guess yours is more complicated with the pharmaceutical, because I mean they're supplying to Checkers and whomever, and so then you're not going to see the Checkers data either, unless your client's willing to provide that to you. So you sitting in a space of not seeing the entire picture either.
Yeah, like sometimes that is the case, like a lack of data. And there's been many situations over the years where we've run campaigns and we haven't been able to get like proper reporting data. We've got a B2B client that we've been working with for like 6 years, and part of the services we offer is to drive new business leads. And 6 years later, they've never actually sent us. So we can see, obviously, from a conversion tracking, how many people completed the form. What
Yeah,
we've been
but
asking
beyond that,
for,
you can't see. Yeah,
we've kind of said, are you getting qualified leads? What type, must we adjust our targeting? Do we need to look at different platforms? And they've just never provided that data. So, often, like on this topic, it has to be like kind of like agency and client collaboration, because often we rely on them to get that data to go, okay, we need to adjust our
this is
targeting,
really
or this was a good idea, this wasn't a good idea. Sorry, just circling back to
no.
that example with Payflex, is this particular campaign we've been running, the main metrics was shopper signups. But we're able to get that from the client. And, over the course of the campaign, we could see that Meta was probably the worst performing versus like a Google PMax. So let's reduce our budget in Meta and upweight it for PMax, because that's the main metric for the campaign. The client doesn't really
Absolutely.
care about reach. She needs to be able to report to her exco that they invested X and they got 5,000 new shoppers, as an example. And that's what we need
So
to
would
work
you,
towards.
yeah. So honing in on, the metrics that are really important. So, maybe gone are the days that reach and impressions, mean anything. Although, agencies still
It,
seem to want them.
listen, it all depends. I think like in a successful digital strategy, that you can't ignore reach as part of the awareness phase of a strategy, for
Sure.
many different reasons and for many different brands. So it's about, when we build out our strategies, we having a look at that entire customer journey. So awareness, consideration, purchase, loyalty, or re-engagement. There's a part to play in each of them. And some, for certain clients, are more important. If you have a look at Panado as an example, that one of their biggest competitors is Grandpa. So there's still, and Grandpa have huge marketing budgets that we are trying to
Mm,
compete with. So there is still definitely an awareness job that has to be done. I mean, there's that old case study with Coca-Cola when they stopped advertising, or they absolutely reduced their advertising spend away from reach and looked at other avenues. And PepsiCo started eating market share. It's Coca-Cola. It's
okay.
most recognizable, one of the most recognizable brands in the world. So I think there's still a part to play, but where I advise against, is getting infatuated by those vanity metrics, because it's so easy.
You just see them and they just keep going up, and you're just like, wow, something's happening. I don't know what it is, but something's happening.
Yeah, it's like if I see a media report and I see, okay, this video got 100,000 views, the first question you should ask is, what was the view rate?
Mm.
Did people watch the whole video, or are you giving me?
Where's the drop off? Like after 10 seconds, that
Yeah,
80% dropped off after 10 seconds.
yeah. So I'm pretty critical, even with my own team's reports, is going like, okay, but is that a vanity metric, or is that really good? Like, if it got 100,000 views, did people watch up until 85%? Like, can I tell the client that it was a good piece of
Mm.
content? Um, yeah, that's super important for us as an
So I
agency,
mean,
because it is.
and to track everything on a month by month, on a day by day, to, like you said, to pick up the pikes and the dips in the places that they matter, and maybe impressions and reach, don't give you don't give you information that you can really do much with, but they might become good predictors of other metrics that are
Yeah,
important.
yeah. So we use a tool called Agency Analytics. Um, and for every client that we run digital activity for, we build out a dashboard that the client has access to, and
Mm.
our performance specialists have access to. So Agency Analytics is great because we can integrate GA4, we can integrate GTM, Meta ads, Google ads, etc., into one space, because before those types of reporting tools were available, it was a very manual process in the beginning.
Sure.
It was extracting data from Google Analytics, then from Facebook, and kind of compiling.
I want to look at some of the real world challenges and some of the hurdles that companies are potentially encountering when implementing these strategies. I mean, obviously you advise, because you have the expertise to roll out campaigns. I mean, do you find that any of your clients are just not digitally proficient? Might be the correct terminology to actually handle what it is that you're proposing.
100%. So I think there is so in your bigger organizations, you'll have your marketing manager, your brand manager, and then you'll often have a digital and e-commerce specialist. So in that environment, what I have been experiencing is that your main contact person, decision maker, will be your marketing manager. Their digital proficiency is on average, and not to offend anyone, is pretty low. And then they kind of rely on this digital specialist or e-commerce specialist to advise. So yeah, it's a real struggle still to this day, and it blows my mind because, like I said earlier on this call, is like it's not new. Like digital has been around for a long time. So I would say that is like digital proficiency is still an issue. However, it's our responsibility to educate. That's how I see it.
Absolutely, and that stuff potentially pays off, much later on down the line.
Yeah.
Budget constraints. Have you
Massive.
Yeah, well, I want to maybe unpack this one a tiny bit. Is in that, do you have scenarios, because you can't spend big chunks of your week putting together pitches as to why company X should take you on as a client, and how do you balance like what a company potentially needs as a realistic digital rollout? And I mean, you said you had was it a VR or an augmented reality thing for BioPlus that I'm sure you spend a lot of time putting together examples of what it might look like, and then they just go, it's going to be too expensive.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Probably our strategy, call it, for combating that is I'm very upfront with asking or chatting about money with our clients. Very transparent about
how much money do you have to do this? Because
it has to be asked, because I think if people aren't direct about it, that's when we as an agency waste a lot of time and money. And literally, it still happens in our business where people or clients request like production quotes, and they're very sticky about giving us a budget, and we send through the costs or the idea or the concept, and they're like, oh, it's not within our budget. So where possible, like I push pretty hard, and it's not to say to our clients, tell me the budget so we can use all of it. It's about give us a bit of a guardrail in terms of what you've got available, so that we can come back with a solution that fits within your budget and that's realistic.
There was something I came across often, was that something as basic as managing a social media platform, and companies say we have 5,500 rand a month, but they want 2 posts a week that need to be curated, and then you just get to a point where it's physically impossible to handle, and then you end up providing substandard content, and then you just devalue the entire industry, because then people say, oh well, building a website's cheap, managing a social media page is cheap. Tumi has got a cell phone and she can go walk around and take photos of shops, or whatever it is. And then I wonder, from your perspective, you're trying to do something that's very impactful, and that it's actually going to provide a lot for your clients, but you come with a premium, and it's just about trying to convey that that value to the clients.
it's you know, what I try and tell my team is, unfortunately, within the marketing or advertising sector, um, the industry has almost pawned itself off, where they pitch for free, they provide ideas and concepts at discounted rates. And I always tell my team, I say, if you go to an architecture firm, right,
Yeah.
they're not going to give you one CAD drawing without paying for it. Any other
Oh yeah.
industry, any other service related industry, you can forget it. You want,
Go to the
you know,
doctor, it's just
you know,
saying hello, 650.
we recently did or redid our office, and we worked with an interior decorator. Before they came to my office, I had to pay them a design fee. It was a nominal
Well,
amount,
that's yeah,
but because I understand, and I value people's, at the end of the day, we sell time. That's our stock.
yeah,
That's our commodity. Um,
sure.
so luckily we've got into a point or position within our business where we are very selective with who we partner with.
Be sustainable about the digital space in that, maybe you're not having to do the physical things maybe that one might have to tackle in brick and mortar. But I mean, the tech that's required, the continuous upgrade of tech that's required, um, like how can, I mean, would you say that your agency is eco-friendly? Is that even a fair question to ask? I mean,
Well, listen, I think like if we have a look at, I mean, we're not obviously a production business. So I think our carbon footprint, if you want to call it, is
it's
pretty
quite low.
nominal. I think what I find, I don't know if anyone on this call has watched By Now. It's a new
And that's
documentary on Netflix.
literally what I wanted to
That's
refer
hectic.
back to. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
intense. I walked out. I switched off feeling a bit shell shocked.
No, listen,
And
I looked at my wife in disgust, and I was like, "You shop on Shein. You should be
well,
ashamed."
my wife, well, like she was like, "Don't you
No,
notice it's happening all over the world?" And I
so,
had to
so
wonder, where we're going with all these. I think the thing that got me was, our phones are very expensive, but they're also very disposable, and everything is happening on the phone. So do we, you know, is there a world where digital can be sustainable? It's kind of, I mean, I don't think any of us have the answer.
mm, listen, I think there's ways. I think there's it's a tricky one, because the whole purpose of what we do for a lot of our clients is to drive more sales, which does have a negative impact on the
Well,
environment in the long
you
run.
go. Yeah.
So I think it's so tricky, and you can have a look at, really light from a data perspective, websites that might save a bit of processing power. Is that having a big impact on the environment? Probably not. Um, so I think this is a super tricky one, because ultimately, and sometimes I do question it honestly, like ethically, in terms of what
Are you
we
fueling
do.
the,
Oh, 100%. Anyone in marketing is, unless you're doing straight cause marketing. Um, all of us, if you end up going into consumer goods as an example, like your job is going to be to help your company sell more
yeah.
products. That's our role.
So maybe this idea of being digital is fueling the flame
So, so I'll
more
give
than
you an
anything else.
example. So like possibly where like the sustainability angle. So we are actually first quarter next year. I'm actually launching another company called Hunger, HUNGR, and it's a mobile menu product for restaurants and hospitality that will alleviate the need to have menus. It will be integrated with a hotel or restaurant's point of sale, so you'll be able to order and pay. It's massive overseas. It hasn't really kind of been really rolled out in South Africa. So if you have a look at pieces of tech like that, that has a really positive net result on the environment, because if you have a look at if you could roll that out on a mass scale and you get your consumers to adopt that, it will, say, from a printing and production perspective of, seasonal menus will disappear. So I think if you can use tech to maybe take away the need for a physical product, but I think it's tricky.
Once you finish a degree, should you start your own thing? Or should you go work for an agent? That's always my knee jerk as well. No, go get the experience. But I want to make it very specific to your agency or the space that you're in. What can students expect? Well, not students anymore, hopefully. Recently graduated individuals. Well, maybe firstly, what do you look for in a graduate?
So
besides experience, so don't say experience. Let's assume that they don't have experience, and
not even experience. So I'm like a big. If I have a look at my own business journey, I look for grit and tenacity. For me, those are. I look for character. So if I had to interview someone, I might pose specific questions that I can determine: is this person, going to crumble under pressure? Do they have grit? Are they hard workers? Because I think when it comes down to character, that's probably the most important, because I see CVs all the time, and often I don't.
How do you go through them? Which one is? How do you decide which one is the most impressive? Besides, the qualifications that are listed.
I don't even really have a look at qualifications, to be honest.
Don't say that. Okay, we're just going to mute that part out. So now I'm just going to dub over that. Say you look for students that have studied at Vega, that have done digital marketing. Okay, great.
Not really. No, I look. It depends. So, like, if we're having a look at, like, we say someone with more experience, we look at their portfolio. For the guys that are recently graduated, one of the biggest deterrents for me as an agency owner is if you've jumped ship too many times. So we won't even interview someone if they've been at this agency for 6 months, then here for 8 months, and here for a year, because of if you have a look at the commercial side, the cost for us to employ someone is so high and train them up. If they're going to come on board and jump ship within 6 months, we won't even. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. We won't even interview that person. So I think it's obviously very different if you're a graduate. You come in without experience. So, definitely, I'm a firm believer that, like, your character in terms of your as I mentioned just now, your grit and your ability to actually push under pressure and work hard, for me, trumps a lot.
Well, that's perfect. But you mentioned you had an intern. So what does a typical week look like for an intern at your organization or your Anomaly?
So from watering the plants,
it's an anomaly. Okay,
it's an anomaly. Watering the plants, we've got our interns involved. So what we try and do is we try and get them involved in everything. So join us in a client status, join us in a team status, join us when we're brainstorming. And there's no kind of limit to where we get them involved. As an example, Riley, one of our interns, we involved in a brainstorm. She came up with an idea and we actually pitched it to one of our clients, which was fantastic.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat again.